It's Ramsey Dewey over here in Shanghai, China. Welcome to another edition of Q&A with a Coach. Today we have a question from our friend Lewis. Lewis says, okay, so after watching the video, he's talking about the video, he worked harder than his opponent and still lost. When hard work does not pay off, go check that one out. Put a lot of thought into that one as I was speaking that message. I don't prepare these videos beforehand. This is talking off the cuff, man. But he says, I have a real question. You're the first big, tall, and strong guy that actually acknowledges that weight, strength, and size make a difference versus technique, and that even the best technical guy will fail once the opponent becomes too big or strong. I'm not talking about a 5'9" black belt beating a 6'2" bigger bodybuilder. I'm talking about 5'2" versus 6'4", and double the weight, double the strength. And I know the big guys will immediately go technique beat size, but small guys, no. That's just not realistically possible. Sure, I can hold my own and make it hard for them, but we know how it's going to end 9 times out of 10. So now my question, how do I diplomatically explain this to big guys without sounding like I'm looking for an excuse? You mean like that backhanded compliment when somebody beats you at jiu-jitsu and you're like, oh, you're so strong, implying that you only beat me because you're bigger and stronger and I'm actually the better technician here. My jiu-jitsu is better. You're actually just a big wimp. You don't want it to come out that way. Okay. Personally, I don't mind getting tapped because I'm too old to take it too seriously. I sort of just want to lift the veil from their eyes. Well, I think I hear what you're saying. As a coach, coaching big guys can be quite difficult if you only have one of them in your gym. And a lot of gyms are like this. They've got one guy who's bigger than everybody else. And they don't really have anybody who can challenge them. And a lot of these guys have never been challenged because they're always the biggest guy in the room. Now, I'm in a different situation. You mentioned I'm a big guy. I'm 6'1", and I weigh about 210 pounds. That's 185 centimeters tall and about 95 kilograms in metric. Right? So I'm somewhere in the middle, I would say. There are dudes who are much bigger and much stronger than me. There are people who are tiny compared to me. So I'm in this size range where I have training partners who can just crush me with size and strength, and training partners that I can crush with size and strength, and people my own size. It's a great size to be honest, for learning martial arts. When you have the guys who are on the upper echelon of size and strength, it can be really tough to train them if they don't have other training partners who are stronger than them, who are bigger than them, who can give them real problems. And if you have a smaller guy who's really technical, like you got a really exceptional jiu-jitsu black belt who can toy with really big, strong guys, there are people who are that good at jiu-jitsu, man. But it's not the same lesson that a big guy learns from that as he gets from sparring with a big guy. It's not. I mean, it's a great lesson that, you know, when your technique gets really good, you can beat bigger, stronger guys. Great. That's awesome. But it does not prepare a big guy to fight another big guy. There was a dude I used to train. He was huge. He was massive. He was ridiculously strong. One of the strongest people I met. And he went to a jiu-jitsu tournament for the first time, competing as a white belt. And he competed against another big, strong, athletic guy who just happened to be better at jiu-jitsu. And he got mollywomped, I think for the first time in his life. And then afterwards he comes over to me and he's just like, he's in disbelief, like, what the heck just happened there? That guy was stronger than me. I used all of my strength and it didn't work. And in the gym, you know, I try to tell him, you know, you've got to use the right technique. You can't just rely on squeezing the guy to death, even though this totally works on tiny guys. Against a guy your size, this isn't going to work. But we don't know until we know, and we don't know until we have the first-hand experience. So you can tell the big guys whatever you want. You can tell them the truth, and it's not going to register until they've had the experience of grappling with a bigger guy. It's just not the same thing. And not all big guys are created equal. There are big, weak guys. And there are big, strong guys. And there's everything in between, man. So a big, strong guy, I assume that's what we're talking about here. So you don't mind getting tapped out? Good. Great. That's a great learning experience. Tap out a lot. Tap out 1,000,000 times, man. It's good for you. It's good for your soul, and it's good for your personal development as long as you ask yourself afterward, how do I fix that so I don't get tapped in that specific way anymore? But I just want to lift the veil from their eyes. Are you ever the big guy in these situations? Do you ever grapple with somebody smaller, maybe a female member of the class? How do you roll with them? Do you try to crush them to death? Or maybe you try to help them learn a little bit? Maybe you don't necessarily compete against these people, but you let them work a little bit. How might they feel about that experience? Maybe it's like, neat, I get to work a little bit. Or maybe it's like, man, this big guy's just being condescending by not giving me everything. Not that they would necessarily want everything and all your weight and all your strength. As a coach, this question matters a lot to me, coaching a big guy. But for a casual student, I don't know why it matters. To me, it matters because if my athletes, my big heavyweight athletes, are not prepared to fight another heavyweight, they're not going to do well. They're going to lose. Maybe you have a concern for your friends at your gym who are big, and maybe they have deluded themselves into thinking that, they would be able to do what they do with you, an older, smaller guy, that they'd be able to do that against a guy their own size. And clearly that's not the case. But nobody knows until they know. A man putting on his armor for war should not speak as a man returning from the battlefield. Shaka Zulu said that. Shaka Zulu, if you don't know who that is, established one of the biggest ancient empires. Actually, not even that ancient. Fairly modern history. Why did I say ancient? Man, that wasn't that long ago. He established one of the biggest empires in history that we know of, conquering huge swaths of the southern half of the African continent. Man, Shaka Zulu knew a few things about fighting. A man putting on his armor to go to war should not speak as a warrior returning from the battlefield. But this happens all the time. Happened in Shaka's day, and it's happening today, right now, all over the internet. Every time a fight-related video goes up on YouTube, somebody who's never been in a fight, who's never trained, who's never had the experience that the fighters involved in that altercation have gone through, will pitch in his expert advice. Well, if I was there, I would just do this. I would just do that. No, you wouldn't, because you don't know how to fight. You've never trained, man. It's not the same thing. So, in short, you can't. Thanks for watching. Now get out there and train.